everybody. My name is Uman, and the title of my presentation is Light and Shadow. So, if you're speaking about light as a physical phenomenon, so light is a form of electromagnetic radiation with a wavelength which can be detected by the human eye. It is a small part of electromagnetic spectrum and radiation given off by the stars like a sun. Animals can produce sound too. The study of light, known as optics, is important research in modern science. When light hits an opaque object, it forms a shadow. Light can be produced by artificial sources of light. Different light sources produced artificially can be put under three broad categories. First of all, it's incandescent source, for example, candle or incandescent lamp. Also, it's luminescent sources, such as fluorescent tube light, electric bulbs, and gas discharge sources, for example, neon lamps and sodium lamps. The universe is filled with objects that produce light. Also, some animals can produce light too. For example, fireflies, jellyfish, glowworms, etc. And this process is called bioluminescence. These animals are like examples. So, next, please. Mirrors, TV screens, black furniture. So every object reflects the light, and in another case, we just won't be able to see it. Although paints have appeared recently that absorb 99% of light, there is still some reflected. Some just reflect more light than others. If you're speaking about the moon does not produce the light itself because it only just reflects light from the sun. And this is when the moon is between the sun and the earth, so that the side of the moon reflecting sunlight is facing away from earth. You can see light, or sunlight, for example, through translucent materials, but you cannot see them clearly. Some examples are lampshades, frosted light bulbs, sheer fabrics, and notebook. Opaque materials do not allow any light to pass through them because they reflect light, absorb light, or both. So the primary properties of visible light are intensity, propagation direction, frequency or wavelength spectrum, and polarization, and its speed in vacuum, almost 300,000 million meters per second, is one of the fundamental constants of the nature. Dispersion is the idea that frequency of a wave influences its velocity, or in other words, speed. Dispersion is easily seen in light when all colors inside white light become separated by a prism. So when a white beam is shown at a prism, all the colors in the light are slowed down when they meet the prism. Each color then retracts or bends, in other words, when it gets into a prism, and it gets refracted by different angles. Now we move to the shadow, and shadow is dark or real image area where light from a light source is blocked by an opaque object. It occupies all the three-dimensional volume behind an object with light in front of it. The cross-section is shadow is two-dimensional silhouette or a reverse projection of the object blocking the light. Light travels from the source in straight lines. If an opaque solid object gets in the way, it stops light rays from traveling through it. The size and shape of the shadow depend on the position and side of the light source compared to the object. So, the region of the complete shadow is called the umbra. It's like in the center, as you can see, and diffuse shadow is called penumbra. These shadows are formed on the Earth during the solar eclipse, and from the umbra we can see a total eclipse, while from the penumbra only partial side of the eclipse. So, as you know, the main source of light on the Earth is sun. Sun makes it light when atoms inside it smash together, and then some chemical reactions take place inside of it. it fires all the energy in all directions. Some of the radiation travels to the Earth as the light and heat, and it gets to the Earth. So, if you're talking about the process, how shade made by sun and how can we see it on the Earth. So the angle of the sun low in the sky to high in the sky changes the length of the shadow cast behind the object. In the morning, sun appears to be low in the sky, but the object casts long shadows. Shadows are long in the morning as well in the evening, and short in the noon, because in the morning and in the evenings the sun shows under different angles, and at the noon it's just above our heads, so that's why shadows are really small. So it's like talking about characteristics of shadow, it's always either large or the same size as the object that makes the shadow. So almost always the shadow is black in its color, and its position changes depending upon the position of the source of light. Also, sometimes it needs the screen to be shown. So if we're talking, if we're taking an orbit body and a source of light, so the shadow will be changing from, will be varying in size, and it depends on the distance between the source of light and the object. So the closer the source of light to the object, the bigger will be. The bigger and the wider will be the shadow, and vice versa. The further distance from the source of light to the object, the narrower will be its shadow. So also we can see this process when changing the angles under which we can put the source of light. So on this example we can see a lamp and a shadow, and if we will be turning around it, so the shadow will be changing too. So how people learned to use shadow in its life. So theater of shadow, or shadow play, also known as shadow puppet, is a way of shadow art that uses shadow and lights and different sources of light just to make such beautiful performances. And the main, as you can see, so the main objects are cut on shapes, which are lighted with a source of light, and also there is a kind of filter between them. Shadow play were popular in different countries, so as you can see, it's Central American culture, so they also used this technique, and it was popular among both children and adults in many countries all over the world. More than 20 countries are known to have their own shadow play troupes. So shadow play has a very long tradition and its customs. So nowadays it's extremely popular. In Southeast Asian countries such as Thailand, Cambodia, in India, also in China, and this tradition, this performance art has moved from Asia to Europe, and also it has become popular in many European countries such as Germany, as in France, in Turkey, and in Ukraine as well. So one day I hope to just to visit such a performance, just to see it with my eyes and just to have fun. Thanks.
Are there any questions?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, sure.
And
I would like to ask you, why do you decided to choose this topic, light and shadow?
So I decided to choose this topic, light and shadow, not because I was given this topic, but also because um, I think for me this sphere of science is not so discovered as others. So I just wanted to find out something new and just to broaden my mind to like become more intelligent than I at the time now.
And one question more. And why do you decided to declare this topic from the point of physics, but not literature or even philosophy?
So philosophy. So like turning to your previous question and my answer. So physics it's not my strengths, and although I was getting good marks in school for this subject, but sometimes there was something that I didn't understand fully, and that's why that's actually that was the reason.
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you for your questions, guys. Maybe you have some questions now? Thanks for your